Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. I hope I got that right. I'm Debbie Miller, and I'm doing the third module on substance abuse, and I've entitled this Journey Toward Recovery. Um, Alcoholism and drug abuse is a disease, and therefore, recovery is going to be ongoing. You are probably familiar with the phrase, I am a recovery alcoholic, meaning the person speaking is working all the time at staying sober and avoiding the relapse of addiction. The recovery phase affects the whole person physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So once that a person is ready to, first of all, admit that he or she is an addict of drugs or alcohol, that they are powerless to stop it on their own, and third, that they are willing to get help, the treatment and recovery phase can begin. So let me repeat that. Once a person is ready, finally ready to admit that he or she is an addict, a substance abuse user, and that they are powerless to stop it on their own. They realize they can't do it on their own. And third, they are willing to get help professionally. First of all, the treatment and recovery phase can begin. It is important to remember that there is no permanent cure for addictions, only permanent abstinence. And that's why recovery from drugs or from alcohol abuse is ongoing. It's continual. There are no in and out games where a person can start and stop drinking or doing drugs whenever they want to. Addictions by nature are chronic and progressive over time if allowed to continue without interventions. We've talked about treatment in the last session, and I will mention it again some tonight. It will be important when you try to help someone who is ready for treatment to talk about your country's cultural values and spiritual values to face the roadblocks that will come of denial, shame, and fear. Those come up in the addiction process and also in the recovery phase, as there are different levels of recovery. Treatment and recovery always require complete honesty by the individual. The tendency with addiction is to make excuses for their behavior, their drinking, their drug using. And so during treatment and recovery, honesty is required. It takes great strength to admit an addiction and then admit needing help. Fear can also trigger denial of the need for help and cause a feeling of hopelessness. And if that is not addressed and supported with group support or a sponsor, a pastor, someone that can hear the feelings of an individual that's struggling with this, the hopelessness can set in and cause it to regress again back into addiction. So recovering persons will often testify that initially the prospect of facing life without the addictive crutch was intimidating and terrifying for them. But in the support groups, the group support groups, and Alcohol Anonymous groups like AA, that's why they keep emphasizing one day, live one day at a time and deal with that day, knowing that feelings come and go, and that shame, if a person feels shame or fear or doubt in the recovery process, those feelings will pass. And with support and help, the person can move on. So what is the pathway to recovery? First of all, is to get help early. Don't cover up an addiction, but encourage people to get help early. Number two is never try to recover. If a person is an addict, never try to recover alone or by yourself in your own willpower. Number three, long-time embedded addictions require an inpatient treatment, a detox, and then a rehabilitation, either in a hospital setting or a rehab center for drug and alcohol. I don't know what you all have in where you live, but that is a very important element, to detox from the alcohol or drugs or both, and then begin a program for rehabilitating a person's thinking and behavior and feelings and values and relationships. Many places will offer a hotline, but more importantly is the outpatient counseling center. So there is inpatient and outpatient. Many times after a person goes through an inpatient treatment center, they will be encouraged to come on the scheduled group meetings or individual counseling in the outpatient rehabilitation. Number 5, stay involved. A person in recovery needs to stay connected and stay involved continuously with the support group like Alcohol Anonymous or the whatever organization or agency in the Philippines for drug rehabilitation and recovery. So stay connected to a church family, stay connected to healthy family members, stay connected to other new friends that are not addicted to drugs or alcohol. There are also other 12-step model program variations for different types of addiction. I know there's here in the States, there's a gambling addiction support group, there's eating disorder support group, a lot of different support groups that use a 12-step program. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact 12 steps, 12-step program listed. I didn't think to put that in this lecture, but you can Google 12-step program, spell out 12, TWELVE, 12-step program, and it will come up with, I'm sure, the Alcohol Anonymous and the drug 12-step program, but it will list the 12 mantras or guidance steps for staying sober in recovery. And those are spiritual and moral values and things mentally and emotionally that help a person. So very good, the 12-step program. And then three more, have an accountability partner or a sponsor, an AA sponsor. They always match up with a sponsor that's recovering drug addiction or recovering alcoholic, and that you can call or text any time of the day or night. They're called sponsors. But have someone that will help you in a weak moment, a struggling time, but also maybe someone that you could meet with on a weekly basis or every other week, even a pastor that would meet with a person that is in recovery. But some type of accountability partner. And then believing that recovery is possible and can lead to a better life is an important step in recovery. Is getting to the point that you know that you need help, you admit that you are, and you know that times you'll feel shame over that, but you are working through, the person is working through that to get to a better life and fight the disease of addiction. Another one is the most important source of additional help, and probably the most important primary one is God. And many times, people that are alcoholics or drug addicts have gotten away from God, or they feel so much shame and guilt that they feel like God cannot accept them and receive them and love them. But it's during the recovery of substance abuse that people feel God's presence and accept God receiving them unconditionally. And so it's an interesting dynamic that when people are going into an addictive lifestyle, they withdraw from God, they withdraw from family, from friends, they become very isolated, only connected to drug or alcoholics that are in the same lifestyle behavior that they are. But God meets any individual where they are at presently. And if a person truly wants to get help and be in recovery, then call out to God and believe that God will be there to deliver and rescue you in the very moment, but also help you along the pathway to recovery, the journey of recovery. So that belief and faith and trust in God is very important. I have two documents that I hope Pastor Chaplain Nato will include in this video, and I'm just showing you them from a distance. One is the progression of narcotics dependency and recovery. And then this one is the disease of alcoholism. And you will notice with both of these that there is an inverted bell curve. And so they both show steps toward recovery for drug abuse, and then the other one for alcohol abuse. The curve downward, then toward recovery. The curve downward, as it's going back up toward recovery, is on the right side of the page. The steps that are on each side of the line, or the symbolic pathway, they both show new ways of steps of new thinking, new feeling, new behavior, new values, new motivation to care about self in physical, mental, emotional, spiritual ways, the development of new relationships socially, and which eventually will lead to this new life, very opposite of the life of an addict. So I wanted to refer you to these two sheets, and like I said, as you get down to the bottom, with this one on narcotics, it'll show 4 different pathways. The pathway going up the train tracks is the pathway of recovery, and you will notice on each side are different step or topics or subjects that are part of the journey. What will happen if a person stays faithfully on the recovery path and not backslide or digress. In the same way with this one, for the disease of alcoholism, if there is no intervention at all, death will be the outcome. But with intervention and a person admitting that they are an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, will go into this pathway of recovery and stay on that pathway, hopefully. So if you have any questions, this is a short little lesson on recovery. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those. If you will do the Facebook Messenger, I would be happy to try to answer your questions or elaborate more. Thank you for being such great learners, and how you're going to make an impact and a difference in your ministry after this training. So God bless you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.